Can we talk about something most doctors are too uncomfortable to bring up? What happens to your intimate life after you lose your partner, after a divorce, after years alone, when you are 60, 65, 70 years old, and everyone around you assumes that part of your life is simply over? If you have felt that quiet grief, that sense that pleasure and connection with your own body belong to your past, I want you to hear this clearly in the next few minutes. There is nothing wrong with you, nothing broken, nothing too old, nothing too late. What is missing is not your capacity for pleasure. What is missing is permission, accurate information, and a plan, and that is exactly what nobody ever gave you. I am Dr. William Harrison, and for more than 20 years I have specialized in women's intimate health after menopause. In my clinic, I have sat across from hundreds of women in exactly your situation, women who lost a spouse, women who left a marriage, women who simply never had the conversation they needed to have about their own bodies. And I want to tell you something that surprises almost every one of them. The years after 60, without a partner, can become the most satisfying, most self-aware, most pleasurable chapter of a woman's intimate life. Not despite being alone, because of it. Before we go further, I want to know who is watching this right now. If you are currently without a partner and have quietly wondered whether your intimate life is finished, type, "I needed this" in the comments. You are not the only one. I read these comments every single week, and I promise you the woman who writes that today will be sitting next to dozens of other women saying the exact same thing. This is not a lonely conversation. This is a community of women who refuse to accept that desire has an expiration date. Let me tell you about Linda. Linda is 67 years old. Her husband passed away 4 years ago after 31 years of marriage. When she first came to see me, she did not come in for this topic at all. She came in for hot flashes and trouble sleeping. But near the end of the appointment, almost as an afterthought, she said something I will never forget. She said, "Doctor, I think that part of me died with him." She told me she felt guilty even thinking about pleasure again. She told me her body felt foreign to her, unfamiliar, almost like it belonged to someone else now. She had not touched herself intentionally in years. She associated intimacy entirely with her late husband, and so anything outside of that felt like betrayal, or grief, or simply pointless. I want to be very clear about what I told Linda, because it is the foundation of everything we are going to cover today. Desire is not a couple's property. It is yours. It existed before your relationship, and it does not require a partner's permission to continue existing after one ends. What Linda was experiencing was not the death of her libido. It was the absence of a framework for understanding solo intimacy as something legitimate, healthy, and entirely her own. Over the following months, Linda and I worked through exactly the 5 pillars I am about to share with you. 6 weeks in, she told me something had shifted. 12 weeks in, she came into my office and said, "I feel like I'm getting to know my own body for the first time in decades, and I actually like her." That sentence has stayed with me for years because it captures something most women never get to experience. Rediscovering pleasure as self-knowledge, not as something borrowed from someone else. Before I give you the 5 pillars, let's address the elephant in the room, because I know exactly what is running through your mind right now. Isn't this supposed to be over by now? Isn't wanting pleasure at 65, 70, 75 a little undignified? Let me destroy that myth completely with actual physiology. Your clitoris has roughly 8,000 nerve endings, and that number does not decrease with age. What decreases is blood flow if it is neglected, and what decreases is confidence if nobody ever told you the truth. The vaginal walls do thin somewhat after menopause, but this tissue remains fully capable of arousal and orgasm with the right approach, often more sensitive in certain areas, not less. Testosterone, the hormone most associated with desire, does decline gradually, but it does not vanish, and it responds remarkably well to consistent stimulation and certain lifestyle factors we will cover. Your body, even without a partner, even after 60, even after years of inactivity, retains its full anatomical capacity for pleasure. What changes is not capability. What changes is access to accurate guidance, and that ends today. Pillar 1. Releasing inherited shame. This is where every single one of my patients has to start, and most never get past it because nobody tells them this step exists. Most women over 60 grew up in a generation where female self-pleasure was treated as something shameful, unmentionable, almost sinful. That belief gets buried deep, and it resurfaces precisely at the moment you find yourself alone and considering solo intimacy for the first time in years. I want you to understand something medically important here. Regular self-pleasure is not a consolation prize. Research consistently links it to better pelvic floor tone, improved sleep, reduced cortisol, better mood regulation, and yes, healthier vaginal tissue through increased blood flow. Think of arousal the way you think of watering a plant. Tissue that receives regular blood flow stays elastic, lubricated, and responsive. Tissue that does not gradually stiffens, like a garden hose left coiled in the sun. The shame you inherited is costing you something measurable: tissue health, hormonal balance, and, frankly, joy. Releasing that shame is not optional self-help language. It is the first clinical intervention. Pillar 2, and I want you to pay extremely close attention here, because this is the pillar that 90% of women either skip entirely or get completely wrong, and it is the one that determines whether everything else actually works. Rebuilding sensation through guided self-touch. After menopause, many women report a strange sense of disconnection from their own genitals, almost like the area has gone quiet, unresponsive, numb in a way that worries them. This is not damage. This is disuse combined with reduced blood flow, and it is almost always reversible. Here is the protocol I give my patients. Set aside 15 to 20 minutes, no rushing, no goal of orgasm attached, in a private, warm, unhurried setting. Begin with non-genital touch first, your arms, your neck, your inner thighs, simply reconnecting your nervous system to the idea that touch equals safety and pleasure rather than obligation or performance. Only after several minutes move to gentle exploratory touch around the vulva, mapping which areas respond, which feel numb, which feel sensitive, without judgment, purely as information gathering. Most women discover within 2 to 3 sessions that sensitivity returns in areas they assumed were permanently dulled. The reason this pillar matters more than any other is simple. You cannot build a satisfying solo intimate life on a body you have stopped listening to, and most women have been disconnected from this kind of attentive self-touch for 10, 20, even 30 years. Pillar 3. The right tools, used the right way. Some women feel a flicker of embarrassment hearing the word, but let me reframe this medically. A personal massager designed for intimate use simply delivers consistent vibration and blood flow to tissue that benefits enormously from both. After menopause, manual stimulation alone sometimes is not enough to overcome reduced sensitivity, and that is not a personal failing. It is physiology. For women just beginning, choose something small, quiet, with adjustable intensity, used externally before considering anything more. The goal in the first few sessions is not intensity, it is familiarity. Pair it with a quality water-based or silicone-based lubricant, because natural lubrication decreases significantly after menopause, and friction without lubrication is the single biggest reason women give up after 1 or 2 disappointing attempts. Think of lubrication the way you think of oil in an engine. The engine still works, it simply cannot run smoothly without it. Pillar 4. The mind-body connection, specifically the role of fantasy and mental engagement. This surprises almost everyone I explain it to. Arousal is not purely mechanical. The brain is, frankly, the most powerful organ involved in this entire process. Many women who lost a partner feel that engaging their imagination in an intimate way is somehow disloyal to a memory, and I want to gently push back on that. Allowing yourself mental space for fantasy, memory, or simply uninterrupted daydreaming during private time is not a betrayal of anything. It is permission for your nervous system to fully participate rather than staying half-present and self-monitoring. Women who report the most satisfying solo experiences consistently describe letting their mind wander freely rather than treating the moment as a clinical exercise. Give yourself that freedom without guilt. Pillar 5, and this is the one I told you to wait for, because it is the piece almost no doctor ever mentions, and it changes everything once a woman understands it. Pelvic floor engagement as the multiplier for every other pillar. Your pelvic floor muscles are directly involved in the intensity of orgasm, and after 60, without targeted attention, these muscles often weaken from years of underuse, childbirth decades earlier, or simple disuse. Here is what almost nobody knows. The contractions you feel during orgasm are literally pelvic floor contractions. A weaker pelvic floor does not just affect bladder control. It directly blunts orgasm intensity, sometimes dramatically. The fix is remarkably simple. Daily targeted contractions, holding for 5 seconds, releasing for 5 seconds, 10 repetitions, twice a day, focusing specifically on the muscles you would use to stop urination midstream. Within 4 to 6 weeks, most women report noticeably stronger, more satisfying sensation during solo intimacy. This single pillar, more than any product or technique, is responsible for the difference between a mild experience and what my patients describe as the most intense pleasure of their adult lives. I have had women in their 70s tell me their first orgasm after rebuilding pelvic floor strength was stronger than anything they remembered from their 30s, and I believe them completely, because the physiology supports exactly that outcome. Now let's talk timeline, because I never want to give you false promises. Week 1 and 2, releasing shame and beginning guided self-touch, simply reconnection. Week 3 and 4, sensation mapping clears, numb areas wake up, pelvic floor exercises build baseline strength. Week 5 and 6, many women introduce tools combined with lubrication and report their first genuinely satisfying solo experience in years. Week 7 and 8, pelvic floor strength compounds, fantasy feels natural rather than forced, intensity noticeably increases. By week 10 through 12, the women I work with consistently describe something Linda said almost word for word. I am not making up for something I lost. I am discovering something I never fully had. Let's address a few concerns I hear constantly. Is it normal to feel emotional during these early sessions? Completely normal. You are processing years of disconnection, and emotional release alongside physical reconnection is common. Will this interfere with future relationships? The opposite. Women who understand their own bodies this intimately communicate more confidently with future partners. Is it too late at 75, 80? There is no expiration date. I have guided women in their 80s through this exact protocol with measurable success. Tissue health and nerve sensitivity respond to attention and blood flow at any age. Full stop. I also want to flag situations where I tell my patients to see a doctor in person rather than working through this alone. Persistent pain that does not improve with lubrication and gentle technique, any unusual bleeding, or complete absence of sensation after weeks of consistent practice. These can sometimes call for a clinical exam or vaginal estrogen therapy, and there is no shame in seeking that support. For most women, though, what we covered today is genuinely enough. So here is exactly what I want you to do, starting tonight. Step 1. Give yourself 15 uninterrupted minutes this week, no goal except reconnection through gentle touch, beginning away from the genitals and moving inward slowly. Step 2. Begin your pelvic floor exercises today, 10 repetitions twice daily, It takes less than 2 minutes total, and the compounding effect over 6 weeks is remarkable. Step 3. If you choose to introduce a tool, start small, start gentle, and always pair it with quality lubrication. Step 4. Release yourself from any guilt around fantasy or mental engagement during private time. Your mind deserves to fully participate. Step 5. Track your sensation honestly, week to week, the same way Linda did, because the women who notice the most progress are always the ones paying attention to their own gradual change rather than expecting an overnight transformation. If this video gave you something you needed today, something nobody else has explained to you this clearly, please share it with a friend who might be quietly going through exactly what Linda went through. So many women suffer through this alone simply because the conversation feels too private to start. You could be the person who starts it for someone you love. And leave me a comment below. Write, "Starting tonight," if you are ready to begin this week, or write, "Still nervous." If you need a little more courage first, there's absolutely no wrong answer, and I read every single one. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because every week I share medically grounded, judgment-free information about intimate health after 60 that almost no one else is willing to discuss honestly. I want to leave you with this. Your desire did not retire when you turned 60. It did not end with widowhood or divorce, or however your circumstances changed. It has simply been waiting for accurate information and a small amount of courage, both of which you now have. You do not need a partner to reclaim this part of your life. You need permission, and I am giving it to you right now, fully, without reservation. Be patient with your body. Be gentle with yourself. And remember that pleasure at any age, alone or otherwise, is not a luxury you have to earn back. It is simply yours. I am Dr. William Harrison, and I will see you in the next video.